A mother? Don't make me laugh. I've never once thought of this servant as a mother.
Mark had come home after a long time to announce his marriage, but it turned into a storm of insults. I say son, but Mark and I are not related by blood. He is my husband's child from a previous marriage, whom I married when I was 40. At that time, Mark was in the throes of adolescence, and though things were awkward at first, I've treated him with familial love. Yet, the Mark of today seems like a completely different person. Overwhelmed with sadness, I didn't even realize tears were spilling down my face.
A servant should just do housework. I have no use for a fake old hag trying to act like a mother. Don't even show up at the dinner party.
Amidst my despair, those harsh words felt like a breaking point. I decided to prepare a big surprise for the dinner party day, keeping it a secret from Mark and William. My name is Lisa. I've always been recognized as a work-first person, and before I knew it, I had devoted 17 years to my career. Reaching 39. One day, deciding to enjoy some shopping on my day off, I ended up at the food floor intending to buy my favorite bread after a long day of clothes shopping. The sign read freshly baked at 4 p.m., first 30 pairs only. Heading towards the bakery I had my eye on, I saw a long line already formed, even though it was just 3 p.m.
Is it already that busy?
I rushed to the end of the line, surprised and alone, unnoticed by the people around me. Just as I reached the end, another family arrived right before the staff announced the cutoff.
That was close.
Breathing a sigh of relief, I barely noticed the family behind me, laughing about how close they were to missing out. I wasn't eavesdropping, but with no one to talk to, their conversation naturally caught my attention. The excitement in a child's voice about the soft, delicious bread, countered by a father's wish for a sandwich made by mom. The mother warmly agreeing with both, discussing how to enjoy the bread. As I listened to their family chat about bread, time simply flew by. Before I knew it, the bread was ready, and the line started moving. As we moved forward, the family's excitement grew, with endless requests from the child and father, and the mother, laughing, saying one loaf wouldn't be enough. Initially excited about how I'd enjoy my bread, the sight of a family enjoying together made me feel suddenly alone. Contrary to my feelings, the line moved quickly, and before I knew it, I was mechanically buying the bread. Usually, delicious food would seem to shine in my eyes, but the brightness of the freshly bought loaf felt glaringly bright to me. After buying the bread, the family behind, still buzzing about it, solidified my decision.
Actually, I don't think I can eat this bread I just bought. Would you like it?
Surprised by my offer, since I had been ahead of them in line, the child eagerly asked the mother if they could accept it, and so I handed over the bread and left the store. Returning home, I spread out the clothes I had bought, but my mind kept going back to that exchange, leaving me with a lingering sense of unease. What would a partner think of me, dressed up so stylishly? What meals would I prepare if I had a child? Where would we go if we went on a family trip? Thoughts I had never entertained before raced through my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a flyer in the morning's mail, prominently featuring the phrase "Meet your future now," and pulled one from the pile at the entrance. Are you stepping into the second road of encounters? If you're a single man or woman over 35, you're invited to a party to find a marriage partner. I thought to myself, why not take this as my last challenge in my 30s? Alone in an empty space, I murmured, feeling slightly brighter, I decided to try on the clothes I had spread out earlier in front of a mirror. The following Saturday, the day of the party finally arrived. I dressed in new clothes and, with more care than usual, did my makeup before arriving at the hotel venue at 9 a.m. For me, attending a party to find a spouse for the first time, even the hotel seemed dazzling and prestigious, making me hesitate to enter. Is my makeup too heavy? Is my outfit too young? Such trivial worries occupied my mind. Despite my scattered thoughts, people presumed to be participants kept entering the hotel. I've come this far, there's no turning back now. With resolve, I entered the hotel and followed the signs to the party. Inside, there were 3 round tables set up, each with 10 chairs and nameplates at each seat. Several men and women, presumably in their 40s and 50s, were already seated, waiting for the party to start at 10 a.m. I took my assigned seat. After a while, when all the participants had arrived, the party finally began. We started by introducing ourselves in turn as a group, then shared about places we'd like to visit or unforgettable destinations under the theme of travel. However, having been engrossed in work, I hardly had experiences with travel or desires to go places, leaving me out of the conversation. As time passed without my participation, we moved to form new groups, this time discussing our dreams. In this group, amidst talk of becoming millionaires or going to the moon, only a man named William spoke of a grounded dream.
Embarrassingly, I've been so focused on work that my wife left me, and I can't even have a proper conversation with my son. My dream is to have a happy family meal together.
The group fell silent for a moment at William's words, but quickly resumed discussing extravagant dreams as if they hadn't heard him. Clearly ignored, William looked dejected, regretting speaking up. Watching William, I suddenly remembered the family I met at the bakery and felt that perhaps with him, I could build a peaceful home. As the second round of group discussions ended and free talk time began, I approached William.
Thank you for sharing earlier. May I talk with you again? Of course, if you don't mind talking to someone like me.
William responded nervously, regretting sharing his dream in the group.
What's your son's name? His name is Mark, and he's 12, right in the middle of puberty.
William smiled wryly, shrugging.
He was only 7 when my wife left us.
After mentioning his son, William mumbled,
He still needs a mother.
We found common ground in our work-first lifestyles, lack of hobbies, and talks about Mark. Despite not being a great conversationalist, William's sincerity attracted me, and I found myself wanting to know more about him and meet his son.
You really love Mark, don't you?
Seeing William's gentle expression whenever he mentioned Mark, I voiced my thoughts.
Yes, well, we don't talk much now because of his puberty, but I always think of him.
William replied, then paused thoughtfully before speaking again.
I've been to several parties, but you're the first woman who's shown interest in Mark as well, William confessed.
Really? I asked, surprised.
Yes.
Not to brag, but I earn a decent living, and while many approach me for my money, they back off as soon as I mention Mark.
He explained, a sad expression fleeting across his face before he forced a smile and looked into my eyes.
How about we go out for dinner sometime, he suggested.
Yes, I'd love to, I agreed.
And so, we exchanged contacts and began to see each other once a week. Before I knew it, I was celebrating my 40th birthday, and William had reserved a restaurant on the top floor of the hotel where we met. Enjoying the night view and the exquisite French cuisine, I was filled with happiness when I noticed William, looking nervous, staring at an open plate.
You see,
he started, without looking up from the plate.
I like that you're dedicated to your work, Lisa, and I respect that, but...
His voice trembled as if he was afraid, making me worry he was about to end things.
I'd want us to focus on our family after we get married.
You've been considering marriage? I realized. Of course,
he said, suddenly looking up, his eyes now strong and determined.
I'll protect you, Lisa. So, I want you to be there for Mark.
It seemed he wanted me to quit my job and become a housewife, but I had already decided that if we were to marry, I'd make our family my priority.
If you're okay with me, then please, let's do this.
Thus, we became a family. I resigned from my job, amidst my colleagues' regrets, and moved out of my apartment. Having never met Mark because he was shy, I felt anxious but visited William's home the following Saturday. William greeted me at the door.
"Welcome home,"
he said, his face reddening slightly.
"I wanted to say that to you, Lisa." "I'm home,"
I replied, my anxiety easing a bit at his warm smile. Inside, the house looked exactly like two men had been living in it. While the entryway was somewhat organized, the kitchen and living room were cluttered with delivery containers and fast food bags, far from clean. I was taken aback by this mess, but more so concerned that Mark was not around. "Where's Mark?"
He took off somewhere after I mentioned a new mom was coming. He'll probably be back by dinner,"
William said nonchalantly, indicating Mark might not be ready to accept my presence. Reluctantly, I started cleaning up the kitchen and pondering what to make for dinner.
"Hey William, you mentioned Mark likes Mexican food like tacos, right?" "I believe so,"
he replied, half-focused, watching TV instead of helping.
"I want to go shopping for dinner ingredients once I'm done cleaning up the kitchen." "Sure, go ahead."
His lack of interest made me wonder if he was just marrying me to have someone take care of everything.
"I can't carry everything by myself. Can you help me?"
All right.
William agreed reluctantly, and I sighed internally at his reluctance. After cleaning, we headed out for shopping.
"Hey, I want to eat this."
William started picking out deli items, bread, and snacks as soon as we entered the store.
"Do you plan on eating all that before dinner?" "Well, this bread will last, and we'll need snacks for when we're a bit hungry,"
he justified, trying to add more than 5 types of chocolate snacks to the cart.
"William, please limit it to 2, I insisted. "That's harsh." "This much should be fine," he argued. "Weren't you told your blood pressure was a bit high at your last checkup?"
Yeah, but...
Reluctantly, William narrowed down to 2 snacks and put the rest back. After paying, we returned home.
I'm tired."
William exaggeratedly relaxed on the living room sofa while I started preparing dinner. Planning to make tacos, my specialty, for Mark who likes Mexican food.
"That smells delicious,"
William commented, drawn to the kitchen by the smell of tacos.
"Want to taste a bit?"
"Yes, please," he brightened up. I served him freshly made tacos on a plate.
"Wow, this is good. Are we going to have such delicious meals every day?"
Seeing William's joy made me happy too. Along with tacos, I prepared several other dishes, finishing just as noises came from the entrance.
"Sounds like Mark's back."
William immediately went to the entrance. Their conversation was indistinct, but it was clear Mark was not welcoming me. Pretending not to notice, I called out cheerfully towards the entrance.
"Dinner's going to get cold," I called out. "I'm coming."
William returned to the living room, gripping Mark's arm firmly.
"Mark, nice to meet you. I look forward to getting to know you,"
I said, looking at Mark, but he just turned away and ignored me.
"Let's eat,"
William said, seemingly oblivious to Mark's dismissal of me, and said nothing to him. I decided to let it go since it was our first meal together and passed the freshly made food to them.
"Here, eat up."
As the 3 of us surrounded the steaming dinner table, William started eating immediately. Mark silently observed the side dishes for a while but eventually, seemingly resigned to his hunger, took a bite of tacos I made.
It's good,
he muttered softly, filling me with warmth. Mark ended up eating all the food I made, thanked me quietly, then shyly retreated to his room.
"He can actually be polite,"
William remarked, impressed, giving me a glimpse into their life before I joined them. The next day marked the start of our life together in earnest. I woke up early to make Mark's lunch, ironed William's shirts, saw them off, and then busied myself with laundry, cleaning, and shopping before preparing meals. Despite the different kind of busyness from work, I settled into our daily routine, and we lived peacefully. Mark, lively by nature, often got into fights with classmates, leading to frequent apologies on my part to his teachers. Then, as winter came, Mark fell ill with influenza, bedridden with a high fever. I wiped his sweat, offered water little by little. I tirelessly cared for Mark as he struggled to drink water. Staying by his side throughout the night without a wink of sleep, feeding him and changing the wet towel on his forehead repeatedly. By the next morning, Mark's fever had slightly decreased, and as I gradually increased his food intake, he began to recover. Ultimately, it took a week for Mark to fully recover, during which I hardly rested, resulting in weight loss. William showed concern but never actually helped, which left me with a bit of resentment. However, we gradually became accustomed to being a family, and life went on. Mark remained a teenager at heart with no significant change in his personality, but he started to engage in minimal conversation. Mealtimes were particularly revealing, as he would eagerly devour his now favorite tacos. Aside from occasionally answering the phone, our life was mundane but fulfilling, just as I had hoped married life would be. Time passed, and I turned 50, while Mark grew into a young man of 23. After graduating high school, Mark spent his time in part-time jobs and idleness, seemingly without a direction. One day, Mark suddenly announced he had landed a job. Apparently, through someone he met at his part-time job, there was an opening in construction, and Mark successfully landed the job.
Congratulations, Mark!
Thanks.
He replied, in his usual blunt manner, which overwhelmed me with emotion.
You've grown up so much. Will you be okay living on your own?
I'll be fine,
he assured me, leaving me feeling a sense of loss as he prepared to leave home.
Make sure to visit sometimes.
I will.
Thus, Mark left home, and it was just William and me. Mark didn't contact me, though he occasionally called William, letting us know he was doing all right. When William turned 60, he retired and enjoyed a peaceful life filled with travel. A year later, William joyfully informed me that Mark would be returning home for a long vacation. Filled with joy, I prepared a lot of Mark's favorite tacos and several other side dishes. Trying to contain my excitement, I kept checking the clock, eagerly anticipating the arrival time William had mentioned for Mark. Then, just before the scheduled time, the doorbell rang, so I hurried to the entrance.
Welcome back, Mark.
Carrying heavy luggage, Mark returned home. I reached out to at least take his bags, but Mark completely ignored me. Shocked, I was left frozen, while Mark quickly disappeared into his room. What just happened? Confused, yet I forced myself to believe that Mark must have been tired, and I returned to the kitchen.
He must be hungry and grumpy,
I murmured, preparing the meal for a presumably famished Mark. Meanwhile, William and Mark, having met in the bathroom, were heard laughing together. It seemed Mark could speak normally with William. With a sinking feeling, I tried to dismiss it and finished the preparations. Ignoring my feelings, William and Mark entered the kitchen laughing.
Let's eat dinner together, Mark.
I forced a cheerful tone, but Mark's smile quickly faded, looking disdainfully at the tacos.
Why are you making such lame food? It's annoying when a fake tries to act like a mom. Don't you get it because you just stay home and don't work?
He said coldly. His words hit me like a physical blow.
Didn't you like tacos, Mark?
Somehow, I managed to muster a smile and responded with great effort. Shockingly, even though William heard Mark's harsh words, he just awkwardly looked away, pretending not to hear. My anticipation for a rare family meal quickly faded away. Afterward, Mark started coming home more frequently but never once looked me in the eye. Moreover, his verbal abuse towards me escalated.
Hey, if you have time to be in my sight, you could at least do this much.
Mark would carelessly throw his laundry at me and rummage through the fridge, leaving dishes everywhere. Shocked by how different Mark had become, I convinced myself he must just be stressed and continued to do household chores emotionlessly.
Hey, servant! Get up when I'm calling you.
Mark would bang on my door late at night due to his erratic lifestyle.
What do you want at this hour? For a servant, you've got guts to make me hurt my hand. I'm tired, so prepare the bath.
Mark blamed me for his own actions and made unreasonable demands.
Right. A shower isn't good enough for me. I need a bath, and I can't use cheap shampoo on my precious hair.
Taking advantage of my silence, Mark went on a rant.
Just be a good servant and quietly do as I say.
Mark, having spat out those words, seemed to storm back to his room with heavy footsteps. I stood there, dazed, tears spilling without my notice, overwhelmed by sadness. What on earth has happened to Mark? Despite not wanting to, as a housewife thoroughly ingrained in my role, I found myself mechanically following Mark's orders, which only added to my frustration. Then, one day, upon his return home, Mark called out to William with evident joy.
Dad, I'm back. Actually, I have something I want to tell you.
What's up? You seem unusually happy.
They entered the living room where I was, continuing their conversation.
Yeah, I'm feeling great. I'm getting married.
Really? That's wonderful news.
Despite everything, I was moved to tears by the news of Mark's marriage.
Then we'll have to visit your mom and her family to introduce ourselves.
William looked uneasy, perhaps already thinking about the wedding, but his expression was bright. Huh? Mom? Mark coldly retorted as usual.
Her, a mother? Don't make me laugh. I've never once thought of this servant as a mother.
That was the most hurtful thing he had ever said to me. Mark screamed like a devil, delivering the final blow.
A servant should just do household chores. I don't need a fake trying to act like a mother. Don't even come to the meal.
Mark spat out these words while I stood there, speechless from the shock. Hoping for some support from William, I turned to him, only to find him drinking alone as if he hadn't heard anything. Unbelievable. Seeing this, I reached my breaking point and decided to call someone. Then came the day of the fateful dinner with Mark and his fiancée, Sandra's family. Knowing I would be insulted by Mark, I got the restaurant's address and the start time from William and arrived right on time by myself. William and Mark had already greeted Sandra inside the restaurant, and Mark merely grimaced upon seeing me.
Lisa, you just arrived. This is Mark's fiancée, Sandra.
William proudly introduced Sandra to me.
Are you Mark's family's servant? I mistook you for a grandmother because you're always cooped up at home.
Sandra said, her pretty appearance contrasting with the harsh words she uttered, presumably influenced by Mark. Suppressing my anger at being ridiculed by someone I just met was all I could manage when a familiar figure appeared behind Sandra. I almost cried out, but held back as Sandra continued unaware of the newcomer.
I don't want to end up like this old lady. I want to stay beautiful forever.
You are the most beautiful woman in the world. This servant here is just a sorry person abandoned by heaven.
They continued to insult me, but the person behind Sandra couldn't stand it anymore and cleared their throat lightly. Surprised, Sandra turned around and exclaimed upon noticing the newcomer.
Dad? When did you get here?
Referred to as Dad by Sandra, the person I recognized had a significant connection to me. He was Robert, my former boss from the company I used to work for, who was most regretful when I decided to leave.
Let's keep it down, it's about to start, he said.
Sandra responded with a pout, and then, feeling it was the right moment, I slowly began to speak.
Actually, I shouldn't be here. I've invited someone more appropriate for this occasion.
As everyone looked puzzled, the person I had invited entered.
What? Stephanie!
William stood up abruptly, retreating as if in shock. And for good reason. The woman William called Stephanie was his ex-wife and Mark's biological mother.
Mark, this is your real mother,
I said emotionlessly, delivering the truth. I had been repeatedly asked by William to keep it a secret that I knew how to contact Stephanie, as she often called him requesting money. Mark was completely taken aback by this unexpected turn of events.
I was listening in secret, and it's terrible how you talk about the mother who raised you. And William, you didn't say anything either,
Stephanie criticized.
Showing up out of nowhere. You came to celebrate, right? Mark retorted.
No, I heard you're marrying into wealth, so I thought I'd come to borrow some money, Stephanie said bluntly, silencing Mark and William.
I cannot let my daughter marry a man who disrespects the mother who raised him. We'll need to re-educate her,
Robert said with a stern yet polite gaze, taking Sandra away. Afterward, Mark's engagement was called off.
Mom, I want to eat tacos,
Mark said a few days later, returning home and seemingly realizing my love and care after discovering the reality of his biological mother.
I was just going through a rebellious phase. I'm truly sorry for calling you a servant,
Mark sincerely apologized. Seemingly reflective of his previous indifference, William exaggeratedly praised me in an attempt to make amends.
I can't eat anyone else's cooking after tasting Lisa's,
William complimented. However, the real gain from the dinner was reuniting with Robert. He frequently offered me a chance to return to work. The verbal abuse from Mark and William's detached demeanor had cooled my feelings toward them. Now, they were both trying to appease me, but who knows when they might revert to their old ways. Considering a fresh start and possibly divorcing to dive back into my career didn't seem like a bad idea. After experiencing a semblance of the small happiness I had dreamed of, living life for myself didn't sound too bad. I entertained William and Mark while contemplating my future, feeling excited about what lay ahead.